Hello, welcome. All I wanted was to be developing lighter content. Zep had told me 2 weeks ago that they would be away from Citron development for about 40 days, and I had a relaxed schedule for the end of the year. But, my friends, she just sent me a new version of Citron for Android. Combining this version with the MK1 drivers, we now have several games that were previously slow now fully playable. And if earlier this week it became a meme for me to say that Citron kicked the bucket with the new driver and update, you won't believe what these new updates will bring to your device. Before we get to the performance tests, let's talk about the changelog. Remember, I'm using an early access version. Because of this, there may be translation errors or changes made by the development team, so the official changelog might differ when released. Let's simplify things for you. Zep is working on adding OpenGL as a graphic API, but this implementation is not yet complete. However, improvements were made in the validation layers for the Vulkan API. A parameter in the audio APIs was adjusted. Citron uses Qbeb and OBO on Android, selecting them automatically. However, this selection needs some tweaks as performance varies depending on the scenario. Important dependencies were updated. FFmpeg, for multimedia handling. SBIRV, for shader compilation. VMA, Vulkan Memory Allocator for Vulkan Memory Management. SDL, for input and graphical handling. Support for converting ABGR8 sRGB to D24S8, depth stencil, was added. This should improve shader compilation and pipeline accuracy, ensuring that sRGB textures are correctly handled during the color space conversion. There's much more to come, but we'll have to wait for future updates. Remember that all our tests are captured with a capture card, with no performance impact due to recording software. The purpose of this video is to show previously problematic games, new games, and also community requests from previous videos. At the end of the video, I'll talk about the games I tested and couldn't run. If you like this type of content, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to keep up with all the latest emulator project news firsthand. Without further ado, let's go to the tests. Starting with this game that has some of the most realistic graphics on the Switch. Bright Memory, Infinite, for those who don't know, is a FPS from a small but extremely competent studio. Unlike what dominates the market, here you can defeat enemies both with firearms and a blade similar to a sword, which even allows you to deflect bullets. As for performance, running at 720p, the game kept a steady 30 FPS. Some objects flickered occasionally, but nothing that affected gameplay quality. For those who complain about me always testing Dragon Ball FighterZ, it's because this is an Unreal Engine game that already has execution difficulties. Because of hacks, if the emulation isn't precise enough, the game simply won't run. So if it's here, it means the emulation is decent. I received comments saying that the game crashed after less than 10 minutes of play. In this gameplay, I managed to play for almost 12 minutes without crashes. However, there was a regression in recent updates, causing the health bars to not display correctly. Many of you have been asking about Dragon Quest XI, considered by many as one of the best RPGs ever released, with over 100 hours of gameplay in some cases. To everyone's delight, the game is fully playable on Citron and, surprisingly, quite lightweight. It runs effortlessly on my device, even at 1080p, and still leaves plenty of headroom on the hardware. This is a perfect title for those looking for something engaging to play during long trips or even while waiting in lines. Additionally, an external controller isn't necessary, as it's entirely playable using just the touch controls. Another game with realistic graphics is Grid Autosport. I confess that playing a racing game at 30 FPS is a strange experience. The screen shake in the game is not due to the emulator, but a native problem that also occurs in the PC version. Also, there's an input delay that can interfere with gameplay, but again, this is a chronic problem of the game itself. As for the gameplay, I tested 2 races at 720p, without the texture pack. The experience was completely intuitive, with no significant FPS drops, even with multiple cars on the screen. For this reason, I consider it one of the best racing games available for this platform. One of the most pleasant updates in this video is Mario Kart 8, which finally runs without stutters or graphical issues. For those who followed my past journey, you know this game was extremely problematic on my device, full of pauses and freezes. Some people also reported the same issue, but now you can play it normally with this new version of Citron, without any complications. At the community's request, I tested Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door. Up until the first battle, the game ran fine. There are minor graphical issues at the top of the screen, but nothing significant that would compromise gameplay. Overall, performance is good, and there are no other issues, so if you've been waiting to play this classic, now is a good time. Pokémon Scarlet, on the other hand, is still far from its best phase. It presents lag, but before MK1, the game wouldn't even run decently. Even on more modest devices, it can now run normally. I tested it at 540p. I'm not sure if it freezes later in the gameplay, but I recommend waiting for more updates before venturing into this game, which is still very heavy to run on Android. Another game that surprised me was the first Red Dead Redemption. In the city, there are moments of lag, dropping to 20 FPS and even 10 FPS. But during gameplay, the game manages to stay at 30 FPS for many moments. Still, I wouldn't recommend playing it on devices equal to or weaker than mine, because in more complex scenes or intense combat, performance can affect the experience, making actions like aiming or hitting enemies harder. The recently released Shadows of the Damned also performed well. Although it seems a bit dark, this can be fixed by adjusting the brightness in the game or screen settings. Gameplay is fluid, with no stutters or graphical issues, though I did notice a slight input delay, something I didn't experience in the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions. Switching from something new to something old, I tested Super Mario Odyssey. Although it ran well before, with some graphical issues, it was hard to maintain 60 FPS. Now, the game practically stays at 60 FPS all the time, except during shader compilation. The Cascade Kingdom, which is graphically heavy, runs without performance drops even with its effects and particles. In the Sand Kingdom, I also got a steady 60 FPS. I haven't tested it in the Metro Kingdom yet, but I believe maintaining 60 FPS on Android will be tough. Finally, I tested Shin Megami Tensei V. In the past, I had issues with long load times, low performance, and shader compilation failures. Now, everything seems to run perfectly. This is one of the games I usually play on PC, and with many mods, it can have issues. On Android, at least up until where I played, the game is stable. I recommend testing it for longer periods to ensure stability. It's worth mentioning that there's a bloom issue in one of the cutscenes. I also tested The Witcher 3 to check if the MK1 driver fixed the game's issues, but that didn't happen. Overall performance is still below expectations, which is understandable, considering the emulator is still in a testing version. In Zelda Breath of the Wild, I managed to repeat the same tests using only the MK1, and now the game runs at a steady 30 FPS. There are no issues with the water or other major visual errors. This title has always been demanding on my device, but this time I noticed there was even some headroom in certain moments. Finally, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Although, initially, I was able to maintain the game at 30 FPS for a brief period, still at 720p, that's already something truly impressive. However, as everyone knows, this game requires at least 12 GB of RAM to run. When all this memory is consumed, whether due to new shaders or additional objects, performance starts to drop, leading to memory leaks, crashes in the emulator, and in some cases, even on the device. Now let's go through the list of games you requested that I couldn't run, with the reasons explained. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. There is no specific configuration or driver that allows the game to work. There are polygon breaks causing slowdown. Tomb Raider Remake. It still presents issues in dark environments, as mentioned in the last video. Yakuza. The screen stays black indefinitely, preventing access to the initial menu. Soul Reaver Remake. It doesn't get past the initialization screen. Disco Elysium. It crashes on the startup screen after character selection. Divinity. Original Sin 2. It manages to get past the character creation screen, but the gameplay is extremely slow. Adjusting settings didn't resolve the issue. Doom Eternal. The menu is broken, preventing access to the game. Wolfenstein 2. I couldn't get to the initial menu. Unicorn Overlord. The game wasn't recognized by the emulator. However, our friend Appcrob managed to run it on Citron Android and showed the gameplay on his channel. I recommend visiting his channel for more information. And that's the video for today. A huge thanks to Zephyron for once again allowing me to test the project to bring this content. And of course, thank you to all of you who watch, support, and make it possible for brands and other developers to see this channel as a source of information. Thank you very much for your audience, and see you in the next video.